Yesterday, the Small Business Administration released the names of some 600,000 PPP loan recipients, basically anyone who got $150K or more. According to your reporting, Planned Parenthood affiliates got as much as $150 million. Tell us about that and some of the other big names who got loans. Some of my favorites on the list, the band Fish, the artist Jeff Koons, really quite an impressive list.
Yeah, to bounce around the room here a little bit and borrow from Fish, there were a bunch of things that jumped out, and that's one of the reasons we focused on Planned Parenthood, is that there's been a big political fight over whether they were eligible for these PPP loans. President Trump has tried to block them from getting access to federal family planning funds in the past. In this case, Planned Parenthood says it's completely eligible as a nonprofit, like many others with affiliates. We counted 43 of their affiliates getting between $65 million and $150 million total for all of those affiliates. The Small Business Administration had put out these loan sizes in ranges rather than exact numbers, which is why we give a range. In addition to that, you saw a Hebrew school named for Jared Kushner's grandfather that the Kushner family has long supported with money, getting a PPP loan. You saw Yeezy, as you mentioned, the clothing brand of Kanye West, getting money. We saw Grover Norquist's group, Americans for Tax Reform, an anti-tax lobbying group. He once said that he wanted to shrink government to the size that it could be drowned in a bathtub. Now his tax reform foundation is taking money, and of course he's one of the people that is paid by that Americans for Tax Reform Foundation. Lots of celebrities, lots of investment banks, as we've reported before and talked to you about before, Allison. There are private jet management companies that got PPP loans. And ultimately, there are a lot of people who needed it who got PPP loans, but a lot of that money went out to places that lawmakers are now raising their eyebrows over, except that handful of lawmakers who actually got PPP loans.
For sure. I want to ask you a little bit more about Planned Parenthood, because you referenced it here. Republican Congressman Doug Collins tweeted his outrage that Planned Parenthood got money from a pro-life perspective. But taking abortion rights out of the conversation here for a second, you mentioned this. There were questions about whether Planned Parenthood should have even qualified because of its affiliation. Are we clear on that entirely?
Well, there's certainly some debate. The Small Business Administration has come out with a statement basically saying that they don't think Planned Parenthood should have gotten this money. They did that several weeks ago. But the truth is that the rules governing this pretty much apply across the board. There weren't very many strictures put into that law, and it's going to be hard for members of Congress to say they didn't mean to do it because they've approved it twice.
So, John, the big question that we keep bringing up, I mean, you and I have talked about this like 3 or 4 times already, is how money intended for small businesses struggling during this pandemic went to the wealthy and the well-connected. Our colleague Ben Popkin reporting today that billionaire Hamptons developer and Republican fundraiser Joe Farrell got a PPP loan, even though he made $2 million this year just renting out his $40 million estate in Bridgehampton called Sandcastle. How did that happen?
F. Scott Fitzgerald would have a field day with that. Writing about those Hamptons estates. Look, the way that it happened is that people talked to their advisors and in some cases made the decision on their own to seek these loans. And there really isn't a lot of restriction on the eligibility. And what happened is a lot of the wealthy and well-connected were the first ones to get loans. While they were getting loans, some small businesses went out of business entirely. And now you've got a situation where there's about $132 billion left in that account waiting to be taken, not even applied for at this point. But certainly folks who had the opportunity to avail themselves of these funds did it. And we've even heard from administration officials that they don't expect to prosecute people under a certain amount if they took the loans and shouldn't have. So this is a program that has not come under as much scrutiny as a lot of other programs simply because the transparency isn't really there. We have not gotten the names of businesses under $150,000, which represents 86.5% of all the businesses that applied for loans. This is going to be an ongoing story, Allison, and I love talking to you about it.
Oh, I love having having you on. I'm sure we'll have you on a dozen times. I mean, look, John, what you said there just indicates the answer to my next question. But we've seen public outrage over some of the loans awarded this year. Some companies have even given the money back. But do we have any indication that Congress, some government entity, is going to investigate how the money was distributed, or even considering increasing oversight so small business relief actually in the future goes to small businesses?
Well, number one, Congress can always re-legislate. That is to say, they can change the rules going forward. They can do oversight of the administration and whether the Treasury Department and the Small Business Administration handled these loans appropriately. In terms of finding the bad guys, so to speak, I think there are going to be some prosecutions over PPP, and we've already seen some chatter about that in terms of like out and out fraudulent activity. But again, the rules here were very loose, Allison.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.